when Neil rang me up to ask me about this lecture, and I have to tell you all, you're very lucky to have someone like him here, because he's incredibly eloquent but incredibly persistent, and what he wants he gets. And we were talking about what we might do, or what I might do, and he said, well, what I think you should try and do is, he said you can do anything. I said, yeah, okay, but what? He said, well, contemporary art, let's think about some aspect of contemporary art. So I had various thoughts, and then I said, I've got an idea, because there's someone I know who lives nearby who actually, in some ways, is the unsung hero of so much of what's happened in British art, certainly in terms of British art success as a kind of business over the last 15 years. And everyone's interested in the business of art, and very few people in the art world actually talk about it. So I said, let's ask Frank Dunphy. And Neil, to his credit, said, yeah, let's go with that. I say to his credit because after tonight you'll realise why that was both a risk and an inspired choice. Because Frank is one of the most eloquent people I know in the art world. But I realised he hasn't done an art lecture. This is his debut, which is a wonderful thing. There is no risk involved, by the way, tonight. The only risk is if we can possibly be contained in the hour that we have at our disposal. But Frank, for me, is the person who, in some ways, has the most interesting side to tell about what's happened in British art, specifically, and I think art internationally over the last 15 years. And he was described by the Wall Street Journal as the bow-tied super-id to Damien Hirst. Sorry, the bow-tied super-ego to Damien Hirst's id. I'm not sure quite what role he'll play tonight, but it'll be something along those lines. But he's not wearing a bow tie, but he's immaculately dressed, obviously. Frank has been, until very recently, when he kind of allegedly retired, but Frank will never fully retire, Damien Hirst manager. And that's a term I'd like us to explore a little later, and he can explain what that is, because there are sort of precedents for what Frank has done for Damien Hirst. But in another way, Frank redefined what that role was, and in some ways there are no precedents. But Damien Hirst recently said, when asked about Frank's role in his life, actually Frank should become the norm. Every artist should have a Frank.